Hello once again, everyone. It's Thursday evening. It's Weather for Weather Geeks time. We're going to take a look at our forecast for tonight, for the weekend, for next week, for the month of June, for the summer season. We're going to take a look at an initial outlook from the Climate Prediction Center at the end of this video. But in the meantime, another beautiful day today, much like yesterday. And finally, things are starting to dry out. Your lawn is probably drying out. Golf courses are getting a chance to dry out this week. We've had a little bit of a breeze. We've had some sun. We've had temperatures in the mid-70s. The air is nice and dry. That helps things as well. So yeah, beautiful day out there today. And I mentioned this on 21 News at 6. We're halfway through May. And despite some of the grumblings out there about, shut off the rain, I would give the first half of May a B in the weather department. It's been warmer than average. The rainfall totals have not been crazy high. We've had some damp days, but the actual numbers have not been all that high. All right, let's focus on what's going to happen as we head through the night tonight. As of 7:05, the radar nice and quiet. It's a beautiful evening despite some cloudiness. It's been a stormy day off to our west, and a cluster of thunderstorms still has some juice to it as it moves through southeastern Indiana, northern parts of Kentucky as well. And this has had a history of producing some severe weather today, including some funnel clouds, some hail, some damaging winds from Indiana back through Illinois, and actually all the way up into Wisconsin. This thing has survived most of the day today. All these storms are kind of lining up along a dew point boundary. You could probably analyze a warm front, kind of like right here. Now, the temperatures are not much different on either side of the front, but the moisture content of the atmosphere is different. We have a dry air mass overhead locally, but where these storms are lining up, it's right near that boundary of the dry air and the more moisture-laden air. And so as we head through the night tonight, that's something we'll be keeping an eye on. The Storm Prediction Center does have the highest risk of severe weather through 7 a.m. Friday morning in the yellow area off to our west, roughly from about Columbus up to Sandusky and points west. The low-end risk gets into eastern Ohio, parts of western PA, but the severe weather risk here locally is probably not as high as our neighbors off to the west. I do agree with how they have that drawn. Now, as we head through the next several hours, I'm expecting thunderstorms to become better organized in parts of Michigan, near that boundary between the dry and moist air. And then that new cluster will kind of cascade south and east through Ohio. Now, the last couple of runs of the high-res Futurecast model here, pretty consistent in aiming a lot of this towards Mansfield, Coshocton, Mount Vernon, New Philly, and not as much into the Youngstown area. And I think especially the farther north and east you are tonight, the drier you're going to be. The farther south and west you are, the better chance you have of hearing some noisy thunderstorms later on tonight. And then by daybreak tomorrow, might be a leftover sprinkle or a shower, but the noisy weather should be gone. Overall, our severe weather risk locally not that high. Again, I think it's higher to our west, but it's something we can't rule out. Can't rule out a brief gust of wind that could cause some minor issues. Don't think there's a tornado threat really. And small hail will be a possibility in the worst case scenario, but even that's a pretty low end chance. The chance of these storms by the time they reach us producing anything more than tiny hail just is pretty low. So have your Storm Tracker 20-watt app handy tonight to make sure that your devices are charged up. We have the chance of a few loud thunderstorms between, say, 2 and 5 a.m. And can't rule out, some minor power outages if we do, if we are kind of on the fringes of that severe weather risk. Our forecast for tomorrow is not bad at all. I think we're going to see some sun in the afternoon, especially farther north you are. That being said, the farther north you are, I think temperatures may actually start to fall a little bit tomorrow in the wake of this front. So a place like Kinsman and Greenville may reach your high late morning, and then temperatures may tail off some in the afternoon. But down in Columbiana County, we're probably still in the lower, if not middle 70s for a lot of the day. That shallow cold front becomes a warm front as we go into the weekend, and this has been our big forecast challenge for Saturday. Does this front make enough north and eastward progress? And the answer has become yes. We're going to get into the warm sector Saturday. It's going to turn into a nice afternoon. I can't rule out a 5-minute shower, but temperatures will climb pretty easily into the upper 70s to around 80, and then summertime on Sunday. This is a true July-like day with a little humidity, a gusty breeze, and temperatures with the southerly flow getting into the mid-80s. And while I can't rule out a shower or a thunderstorm in that somewhat unstable air mass Sunday afternoon, I think most of the time will be dry both Saturday and Sunday. So we have 79 in the forecast now for Saturday, 85 degrees on Sunday. So if you have outdoor plans this weekend, an outdoor party, a graduation party, anything going on outdoors, do not alter your plans as of now because of the weather. Now, at the last second, you might have to duck inside for a minute or two with a passing shower, maybe a rumble of thunder Sunday afternoon, but it's a small risk. Overall, the weekend should be just fine. All right, the Climate Prediction Center, part of the National Weather Service, did issue their June outlook and their initial summertime outlook. I'm going to do my own versions of these forecasts as we go towards June 1st, but just to give you a little sneak preview of what may be to come, this is the government forecast for June, showing increased odds for below average temperatures in the middle of the country, warm on the west coast, warm on the east coast, and we're kind of in between. You know, we're in a weak El Nino this summer, and with the wet soil, those are two things, those are kind of two strikes against us for a hot June. When you have a weak El Nino and there's a lot of moisture sitting in the ground through here, that means the atmosphere will have a harder time warming up the ground and therefore warming up the lower atmosphere. Yes, it's June, it's going to be warm, but a hot June, much hotter than average, that seems pretty unlikely. Overall, probably shakes out to be a pretty typical June. Now, this map is good news for those who are tired of some rain. While May has not been crazy wet as far as the actual amounts, people are longing for some dry weather. Not much of a signal here for June as far as precipitation. A wet signal out west, but not seeing much of one here. So both in the temperature and precipitation department, June should be pretty typical. All right, the summertime outlook. That means June, July, August for temperatures. Again, the middle of the country favored for cooler than average temperatures. The west coast and the east coast favored for warmer than average temperatures, and will be probably on the warmer side of things. You know, if you're placing weather bets these days, you bet on wet and you bet on warm. Most months in the last few years have been wet and or warm. We've had just a handful of colder than average months and a handful of drier than average months. The odds certainly just seem to favor warm and wet lately, so I would hedge my bets, as the Climate Prediction Center has done here, on a warmer than average summer, despite June not exactly being all that hot. As far as the precipitation outlook for summer, the best odds for above average precipitation will be in the Rockies and parts of the Plain States. You know, we're in this pale green color here, which means it doesn't seem like it's very likely at all to be a dry summer. There's not much of a strong signal to suggest that it's going to be crazy wet either. So, you know, both in temperatures and precipitation, I'm not expecting a lot of extremes this summer as a whole. The occasional extreme day, sure. But as a whole, when you take June, July, and August, throw them in the hopper and then see what we have come September 1st. Maybe a little warm and a little wet for the summer season compared to average. All right, stay tuned for more updates on our thunderstorm threat later on tonight. If you're up and at 'em early on Friday morning, make sure you're watching WFMJ today. Emily Frazzini will have an update on what has occurred, what is occurring, what will occur. I think as a lot of people get up and head to work Friday morning, the storms will be long gone. But Emily will have updates in the morning, and I'll see you back here Friday evening for Weather Geeks.